As we are about to start the study today about the Spiritism Inspiring Lives, we start with a message entitled, Let Us Be at Peace, by Manu.
Let us be at peace. Live in peace with one another. Paul. If it is possible to live in a climate of perfect peace due to the ignorance and hostility that dominates the human pathway, it is logical for disciples to seek inner serenity when faced with the conflicts that seek to envelop them at every moment. Each incarnate mind is an extensive center of spiritual government, subordinate for the time being to appropriate limitations while served by various abilities expressed in the senses and perceptions. Once all the individual power centers become self-controlled and are geared toward the real good, then wars will be banished from the planet. To achieve this, however, those of humankind's brothers and sisters who are older in experience and knowledge must learn to live in peace with one another. Educating the sight, hearing, taste, and impulses represents the primordial foundation for constructive peacefulness. We usually hear, see, and feel according to our inclinations and not according to what is real. We interpret certain pieces of information according to our inner disharmony rather than the good intentions in which they are initially sent. We observe situations and events with the light or darkness that infuses our mind. We feel with the reflection or chaos we have instilled in our own understanding. For this reason, serenity must envelop our steps as much as possible as we face the conflicts that surround us in our present circumstance. Without calmness, it is impossible to discern and to work for the good. Without peace inside of us, we will never reach the realms of true peace.
In that way, we start our study today with our internal harmonization. May we all bring the focus of our attention to this ambient, prepared by those who anticipated us, the spiritual benefactors, feeling this ambient vibrations of peace and love, that we all are involved as immortal beings, brothers and sisters in humanity, ourselves and all of those who are here with us, either those who are coming and following us spontaneously, those who may be brought by the spiritual benefactors, those who may feel attracted towards this proposal of study about the natural laws. Studying Spiritism means to study the natural laws in the universe, which inspires every soul, every spirit in their journey of evolution. We are all learners of ourselves under God's laws, beings essentially of goodness, who are in this journey of self-enlightenment, discovering who we are, three-dimensional beings once we are incarnated on earth, with the blessings of goodness, of tenderness, of gentleness, coming from those who are with us, pleased for us to be united under the same banner, love, charity, and as students as we all are, inspired by the greatest Master, Jesus, we start our study today. So be it. In that way, we carry on our studies as immortal beings as we all are. And it's interesting, we just read a message related to peace, which came from Paul, which wasn't organized. And we will be reflecting today about self-knowledge and patience. which is a very broad subject for all of us, and we all are at the beginning to learn to be more patient. So everyone feels welcome to this study. And we go through this couple of moments that we have here because really the subject is quite broad and our time is quite short. So we bring some different references for our reflections, and hopefully also the books which we will be referred to may help us to go deeper into the search. Self-knowledge and patience. What do we think the subject is about?
We need a lot of patience to get to know ourselves.
We need a lot of patience to get to know about ourselves. And getting to know ourselves means that we find out that we lack patience, isn't it? But we are in the right pathway. So let's start then with the first reflection from the book O Consolador by the Spirit Emmanuel, who says, true patience is always an externalization of the soul that has accomplished much love in itself to give it to others in exemplifying. So what comes to us when we read and heard this first phrase?
I also associate patience with faith, because when we lack faith, there is a message of the gospel that says when we, for an instant, if you lack faith, you feel the anguish of not having faith. Mm-hmm. I think it's the same with patience. And externalization is because it is a virtue we already have, or developed to a certain extent, not fully.
Okay, so the externalization is of the self-realization through our self-development, self-enlightenment, self-transformation, that became part of us in actualizing our belief systems and choosing in our behavior when we are in the trials and tests on every day, that we incorporated it on our emotional dimension, isn't it? Hello? Yes, it's always an externalization. What do we understand about soul?
Soul is the spirit while on earth, according to Kardec. When we are incarnated, he calls the spirit soul. Okay, so for us as immortal beings, we can be incarnated or disincarnated, but we are immortal beings. Once we are in the flesh, through the law of reincarnation, through the immortality of the soul, we came back and just, let's say, helping us through our ignorance of vocabulary on earth, the distinguished soul, okay? So in that way, we carry on here then. Susanna, read it for us, the next one, which still is in the book O Consolador.
This love is the fraternal expression that considers all creatures as brothers and sisters in all circumstances, without wasting the energy to clarify misunderstanding when this becomes indispensable.
Okay, so how do we understand this?
Patience is the expression of love, and love is fraternity. It's when we are able to see everyone coming from the same Father, which is God. Mm-hmm. And so we know we have to help each other, so we use our patience to be patient and help one another.
Or we train patience when we are on the journey of learning and helping others, because it can be quite challenging, because now we are understand that we are all brothers and sisters in humanity. And that is much easier to be understood on the cognitive level, but it's very challenging sometimes on the emotional level. And why is that? Because we, throughout our evolution, we evolved more intellectually than emotionally. And now we have this intellectual understanding, which will help us from the objective level, rational level onwards, to re-educate ourselves and learn to be patient as we go along and live with each other and help each other out. Is that right? Anything else?
We could use our logic, because we're still imperfect and we love or we like when people are patient to us, so it's the same with other people.
Yes, we can also, because when we learn to be patient, we would be right in saying we also are invited to learn to forgive ourselves so that we can forgive others. We also are invited in the same level to learn to be tolerant towards others. How can we be patient if you don't learn to be tolerant, if you don't learn to be forgiving, if you are not willing to develop the virtues within us? But if we are willing, which is our case as students as we are, we recognize our shadows, our limitations, our impatience, our intolerance. We are more conscious of it, and because it is on the conscious level, we can interact in a different way. We remind ourselves that we do have different options. Sometimes we succeed, other times we may get it wrong because we are training. There is nothing wrong when we do it incorrectly, as long as we take responsibility and allow ourselves to carry on in our learning. Yeah, because very rarely we get all the time everything right, because we still are at the beginning. Cynthia, would you like to put the projector a bit higher, just a bit more, please, while we go on here? And then still we have in the book O Consolador by the Spirit Emmanuel, learning about self-knowledge and patience, where we will read, yes, which says, it is with the inner spiritual illumination that we acquire these sacred values of enlightened tolerance. And in order for us to build ourselves in this divine clarity, it is necessary to educate the view, healing secular psychic infirmities which accompany us through successive existences, such as to abandon our own efforts to adopt indifference and complain of the external forces when evil lies in ourselves. That comes to us now. How do we hear it this time around? Understanding that our understanding will evolve as we evolve too. But today, when we read, when we heard, when our purpose today is reflecting about self-knowledge and patience, what do we learn by Emmanuel here?
To acknowledge we are powerful in terms of that we can change what we feel, especially indifference and complaint. We know we are very used to do it, it's a habit, but we can change it. It's not easy, because when we say it seems very easy, but it's
very important that we choose to study about ourselves, choose to develop self-knowledge, to realize that perhaps we may have from previous existences the elements of self-abandonment, which we did, because we are already beings in evolution through centuries and centuries. That means that we have been granted many, many different existences in different bodies, in different epochs, but we may have been neglecting ourselves as immortal beings, neglecting the opportunities to enlighten us from a spiritual perspective, from an immortal perspective, to develop the real virtues. But you rightly said, we all have been created simple and ignorant by God, and we bring the greatest power of all within us, which is the love that comes from God and all the seeds of the virtues that we need to develop. And one of them now is not to abandon ourselves, but is to educate our will. What do we understand about the will? Did we throughout centuries educated our will? Or haven't we used at all? What do we think? Did we use our will so far after centuries or not?
In the wrong way.
So we used it, yes? You are very kind, not to be specific. But I put the words there. We did use the will, yes. How do we know that? Through our habits, through our ways of being today, through our tendencies, through our likes, through our dislikes, what we like, what we dislike. That is the evidence that we used our free will, but probably outside or without the understanding within God's laws. And here we are now, today, reflecting about patience. Then it's very important to learn to accept ourselves as immortal beings in evolution, essentially beings of love, but train, educate, or will this time according to the will of the Creator. And in that way, we will not be abandoning ourselves once more. We will be educating ourselves. And then it says, to adopt indifference. Did we adopt indifference in the past? Still today. Which are ways or behaviors that we may evidence the indifference?
When we can be used, when we are not, when we only worry about our own needs, and we're completely shut down by the needs of people.
Precisely, we cannot see beyond our own ego, let's say, yes. and we don't care about the tons of invitations that the universe sends us on a daily basis to cooperate, to be open, to be collaborative. In that way, still the indifference may be dominating in us. And complain of the external forces. Did we do that in the past? Did we as immortal beings complain that external elements, people, situations are responsible for my way of being? The government is guilty for my unhappiness. What else? Anything and anyone. We just complain. I was talking today with someone and said, oh my God, I really was so hungry, I really couldn't even look at my dog's eyes. And the dog was there looking at me in a loving way, and I felt more irritated. I said, oh my God. We can really be a bit crazy sometimes. There's external forces. I said, well, everything outside is the mirror that shows where we are internally. And then when evil lies in ourselves, what do we understand at present means evil for us? Because surely we understood in previous existence perhaps evil in one way. And as we evolve, and within Spiritism, what do we understand evil be?
I would say it's our imperfections.
The evil means in our new understanding, or on shadows, or on imperfections, or on limitations, or on concepts and values that are not in accordance to the natural laws, which are God's laws, which is not in accordance of the truth. Okay? So there's no reason to blame ourselves, to feel guilty if we realize those habits and those values, but invest now through self-knowledge and to overcome them. There is no way that we learn to be patient through inertia. There is no way that we learn to be patient when we carry on being indifferent of the good of everyone. There is no way that we can train patience if we still complain that my negative shadows and limitations, the external factors are responsible. There's no way that I will learn to do that. Yeah. And then we carry on still with Emmanuel. Cynthia, carry on to read for us, please.
To carry out such a sublime development, we needed to begin with the discipline of ourselves and control of our impulses, considering the freedom of the inner world, from where man must dominate the currents of his life.
What comes to us in our learning about patience?
Self-control.
Self-control. What do we understand is self-control? Because again, if you consider that we are all in different levels of evolution, means in different levels of understanding, can we understand that in different ways? Which ways? Which way can we understand control, to be in control?
We could understand it from the ego, as you say, when we have to control everything and everyone. Or we could understand self-control as this ability to educate our actions, our thoughts, to not react, but to act in a certain time with the right action, if when it's possible.
Correct. But it's very important to learn to be in control of ourselves, but no longer from the ego state of mind. Because as we learned in previous existences, we learned to control situations outside us, to control people outside us, and merely because we didn't know that we weren't in control of ourselves. Now, as the Spiritism is inspiring us through the lessons, through the teachings, we learn actually to rescue us from us and to connect with our essence, which is the self level onwards. And from that onwards, to educate, participate in our own education process and educate our thoughts, our emotions, when we feel hungry, when we feel without control, to restructure that, because then we are developing the real control, which is over us and not outside us. That is fundamental for us to learn to be patient, because how can we learn to be patient if we don't have control of what we think? And what predominates in our thinking most of the time? Let's be honest. If we lack patience, what predominates? That's easy, isn't it? What do you think? What predominates? If we lack patience, what predominates on our mental level? Surely negative, disturbed belief systems. Would you agree with me? Very simple. Negative, disturbed, conflicting belief system and thinking is not in accordance to the universe's laws. They are the false pattern, but the negative ones. Is that making sense? Yeah. Begin with the discipline of ourselves. Do we like discipline?
No.
I don't know why we laugh.
The old person, no.
No. What do we understand actually about discipline? What does the old person send us? Messages that the discipline was there and then.
We need effort, we need to constantly keep up with something that we need discipline. For example, if we need discipline on a task, we have to repeat it many times. We need to have discipline with time, commitment, make a lot of effort. We might be a bit lazy to do so. That's why I think it's important to like discipline.
Okay. So the discipline in the old days, rebellious beings as we were, how did we hear that?
Very negative.
Very negative. I mean, you are telling me what to do. I'm free to do what I want. And what is discipline? Virtue. It is a virtue. And we also need to bear in mind in the old days where we are emerging, our own education system, they were very rigid, very imposing, do it my way. Then we have the military system behind it. But this is not what we mean here. Discipline is a virtue where we learn to expand, to potentialize from within. And it's vital for us to learn to be patient. Otherwise, we cannot develop patience if you don't develop discipline. Discipline of what we think, which means to learn to select, to filter what we hold on our mental level, to restructure, it's almost like to go through a spring cleaning on the mental level, to simplify our minds in terms of our thinking, and hold ideas that correspond to the universal laws. Yeah?
It is actually essential because if we think of discipline and patience, there is a book that was published called Outliers, and it's a study about why people are really good at what they do. And the author said we need at least 10,000 hours of doing something to get really good at it. And Joanna de Angelis says we need 10 billions or maybe trillions of experiences, the same experiences to actually get good at something. So imagine if we don't have discipline or patience.
Yeah. So do we feel motivated by her recommendation? We are better off if we now choose to discipline ourselves. And remember, discipline is not punishing us. Discipline is participating spontaneously, using our free will and educating us within what is good for us. What are the benefits of developing discipline in our lives? What are the benefits? Are the benefits to be disciplined? Yes? What are the benefits? Timekeeping. I invest more, I can progress more, I can evolve more, I do much more if I'm disciplined. Because if I'm not disciplined, I go back and forward, and I don't move from where I am. Yeah? What else are the benefits of learning to develop discipline? Time management, timekeeping. Nothing else. It seems that is a new module for us, yeah? What else are the benefits for us as immortal beings who are in a new body, who are on the school earth?
Discipline, Emmanuel says, is what comes before being spontaneous. So if we have discipline in a certain task, it will come to a time where it will be automatic, or we will know how to do it really well. It will become spontaneous.
When is that time going to come?
We need to be
How many times did you say that Joanna Jones recommended that we should do the same thing? Billions. So it becomes part of us when us as immortal beings, as spirit, choose. Remember, when we choose, we engage with our emotional dimension. When we choose to, because I have to, I'm just here up here, then I need to repeat all over again. But if I choose on an emotional level, because I already understood that, and I'm willing now to really develop this virtue, which I know is an ongoing process, and in that way, we more and more do it. Later on, when we come back to a new physical body, being higher ourselves as psychological emotional beings, and we have that more within or part of us already. Because remember, virtues are seeds that have been given by God since our creation. We all have the seed. To stimulate and to develop, that depends on the use of free will, as each one of us does now. Any other benefit to learn to be disciplined?
For me, it's a kind of relax my mind, clarify everything, all my thoughts.
Good. So when we choose to discipline our minds, means that we really choose to participate to simplify our minds, yeah? Through the exercise of the will, focus on the goal that we choose now. Keep our minds simpler. Focus the ideas, select the thoughts that we feed ourselves with. And in using discipline, we will reach that higher level of having more control of ourselves on the mental level. And that impacts, what is the impact of that training in ourselves? You mentioned already inner peace. What else? More health. We become healthier, don't we? Yes. In a long term, precisely. We are more patient. We are happier because we are opening space internally where we detox ourselves. Correct. Which kind of impulses may we have, or the people outside this room?
Eating disorders.
The eating disorders, the impulse just to eat, because we are so empty inside. We haven't disciplined our minds what comes from the higher level of pleasures, which are the psychological and emotional dimension of ourselves. We still are pretty much on the instinctive memory, yeah? Considering the freedom of the inner world. What do we understand the freedom of the inner world? Do we have an idea? What is the freedom of the inner world? Do we have an idea? Emmanuel teaches that a lot in his teachings, in his books. The freedom of the inner world means all use of the free will which we developed already, training our will according to the will of God. And in that way, we free from ourselves, from our own limitations, from our own shadows, and we develop that inner peace or the inner freedom, which is relevant to develop patience. Is that clear? So when we overcome our own limitations. Yeah? And then carry on, then read the next one, which is in the book Autodescobrimento, uma jornada interior by the Spirit Joana de Anjos.
By placing happiness, unity, psychological and social, it is inevitable that awakening is always depressing, tiring, deprived of real meaning.
Would you like to comment? Who would like to enter?
We have very, let's say, unstable existences while on Earth because the planet of trials and expiations. So we've replaced our security on things, and people will never achieve this patience or inner peace we're talking about.
So when we are here, self, knowledge, and patience. Through the teachings of Joana de Anjos, consider my process of self-knowledge, I will learn that. I do learn right now. When she says, by placing happiness in meeting physiological and social needs, that is pretty much if my consciousness is full of concepts and desires from a materialistic viewpoint onwards, where I seek happiness from the physiological body level onwards and social interaction only, but not from a perspective as a mortal being. Is that making sense? As she carries on, it is inevitable, if I'm this kind of a spirit, what happens to me? As I evolve, it's inevitable that awakening is always depressing, tiring, deprived of real meaning. What is she teaching us? Are we all on earth stimulated to evolve, to learn? All of us, all God's children? Yes or no?
Yes. not choose to, yeah,
We came to come back to learn, but a lot of us still are focused and stuck on the physiological and social needs from the previous existences. Who are those? The ones who now are invited to start to wake up and are depressed, find it challenging, tiring to study about the natural laws. Tiring is exhausting, is a lot of effort to re-educate myself in relation to the moral, ethical values, because my existences, my pleasures, my satisfactions were based on the physiological social needs and not on the transcendency. Those who are more evolved, who already overcame, they find it easier in this evolution process. They are less depressed because they already are more awake spiritually, understanding the real life, what the real meaning is in life. They are not struggling, oh my God, if I need to go to study, I will lose the opportunity to go to a party. They are no longer struggling with that. They make choices already that they have this internal discernment, more clarity. Is that making
It's
sense?
interesting, I mean, it's because those times when we feel tiring of studying or depressed, they always come and go. So I think when they come, it's important to make an assessment of, let's say, count the blessings. Okay, what I have learned so far with Spiritism, in what way I have improved, just to understand why I am studying Spiritism, to become a better person. And if we actually start studying, we can study all the subjects. It's not only one thing. We can pick. I don't know, we can choose one subject we want to work and focus on that. There's so many books, so many things we can do just to stimulate ourselves.
Correctly, because they need to learn to stimulate us. We always still bring from the unconscious mind or limitations or perfections or shadows, as mentioned before, but first is the level. Those who put more effort, they are more at ease to follow that. Those who don't, or those moments that the old me or the old tendencies emerge, we accept ourselves as divine beings and valuable beings, recognize the limitation that is allowed to come to the conscious level, but don't allow us to feed it, to validate it. Then immediately we do a different movement. I feel like not study, I may choose, well, now I choose, even if I need to stand up for a while, so that I discipline myself, that I develop the willpower, giving explanations to me on the rational, conscious level, why I'm choosing to do that, in order to condition myself with new ways of being, as a mortal being, knowing that only I can do something in relation to me. Only I can invest in my development. Clear so far? Then we move to the next one. Cynthia, read it for us. It is in the book Rumo Certo by the Spirit Benefactor Emmanuel, and it's a question.
How to obtain serenity when we are impulsive by habit?
What is the question about? What do we think? That is Emmanuel. How to obtain serenity when we are impulsive by habit? Are we impulsive by habit? Yes, we are. Again, but the first is the degree, but we all are. What is habit here? How do we understand? What do we understand impulsive? Reactive, yes. Again, impulsive means also reactive, intolerant, habit. Who created our habits? Conditionings that we ourselves used, or free will. We made choices and then we repeated them, probably very unconsciously. Yeah. Now we are in the proposal to inspire ourselves within the message of Spiritism and to choose consciously. And then we hear the answers. Cynthia, carry on, please, for us.
It is fair to remember how we accommodate ourselves, obedient to hear Peter to teach us. It is also necessary to focus on the emotion in the chair of reasoning in order to educating us. And by applying the principles of brotherhood and love that we embrace, we will invite our own senses to the necessary renewal.
But we learn.
For me, the most important word is obedient, because I feel that I I struggle to be serene because I'm always anxious, because I think I don't know how to trust the flow of the universe. And that's for me would be the obedience that I need to learn, because I don't trust, so I always try to intervene, I was trying to be control things, and it's a habit.
It's a habit. And why don't we trust the flow? Do we have an idea why we don't trust? I think it is in here when we read it. It's not written there, yeah? When we don't trust the flow, what does it mean? Would it be right in saying that we are dealing with resistances on the emotional level? That means that we haven't educated our emotional dimension in relation to God's laws. We haven't trained ourselves on that level. Because in the past, and that needs to be looked at in a loving way, we were in control and dictated what we do and what we don't do. And it's almost like we didn't believe there was someone beyond us. Now that we are here, then we are, through the self-knowledge, becoming aware. Oh my God, I have difficulty to go with the flow, to trust. I always want to move around things. Then, inspired by the teachings of Spiritism, I choose to participate actively in my self-education process, renewing my belief systems, renewing and actualizing my behaviors, based on the goal which I'm inspired now. And that will gradually accommodate the emotional dimension. Because that goes back what Cynthia said previously. In order to trust, that connects us with faith. And faith, in essence, is a sentiment. Evolution happens through reason and emotion, isn't it? So when we choose thought or develop the intellectual level, we haven't developed the emotional level. Then we still may be temporarily with these two values which are in discrepancy. Yeah? Faith, also learn to trust, which is connected with faith. What else does the spirit develop in order to learn to trust the process, which we don't know what it is sometimes? Do we know always what comes next? No. So what else do we need to develop? Of course, we need to be patient. Learn to be patient. What else? Faith in God. Trust in God. What else?
Pray.
What?
Pray.
Pray. Would I be right in saying obedience to God? Dear Lord, I don't know where you're guiding me, but I know that you know more than I do, and off we go. Resignation is not my way, it's the way of God wants me. And that is a revolution in our conscience, yeah? What else do we need to learn? To really let go the control. Do you have an idea?
We're not very familiar.
How about humility? Be humble. Would that help us to resist less and to trust more? Any other? How about to discipline ourselves according to the greatest order in the universe? Is that attractive? I need to think about it. Anything else that you take from here? The constant necessity that we all have to renew ourselves. And when we are studying Spiritism, it is inspiring us, because now Spiritism is not imposing anything on us. It's helping us to learn to reflect by ourselves. It's helping us to develop a reason in relation to the greatest reasoning in the world, according to the natural laws. So if mind reasoning is against universal laws, I'm now blessed with the possibility to renew my thinking. Remember in the Spirit's book when we study why is not always reason an infallible guide? And then the Spirit say, reason is not always an infallible guide to the bad education, pride, and selfishness. As more as I remind myself, as more as I study, more I will develop the discernment, and it will be easier for me to perceive my own limitations and freely and spontaneously choose to restructure it. Is that making sense? Moving on now. Susanna, read the next one for us. Where are you? Yes.
Once this is done, we will realize that every moment of disturbance or imbalance is the best instrument for evaluating our own development. We will finally learn that.
Now we carry on. Did you understand so far? What is the first bit? Once this is done what?
What he said previously.
What he said previously. What did he say previously?
Be humble, be obedient to God's laws,
To be fraternal, to develop the obedience, resignation, humbleness, as we said, to learn to be fraternal, to be brothers and sisters in humanity, to be good, to be willing to evolve, to change. So, once this is done, and much more what we said, discipline, don't forget discipline. When that is done, then we learn that before criticism, we are called to the demonstration of benevolence. Has that to do with developing patience? How would we reframe this phrase according to what we understand today?
Help one another instead of just pointing.
Help one another instead of just criticizing each other. What is the benefit for me to do that? Inner peace, even is, yeah? What else? But I'm doing good, but people still criticize me. What do you have to say to me? It's not your problem, you cannot control. Be you the one who choose to do good as Jesus taught us. And don't be concerned what others do, because we are here to develop our own selves. Before censorship, one must exercise goodness.
I think when the good spirits like Emmanuel, when they give us these recipes, they are always inspiring us to build up our virtues because that's what we are here to do.
That is the real life. The superior spirits are constantly inviting all of us to potentialize ourselves from within, and the only way of doing that is to potentialize our own virtues, to developing the good values of the good person, which are based on the higher potentialities of the soul, the virtues. And that is the only way that we can evolve. We don't evolve because we have more money, we have more human power. No, we evolve more when we develop the moral, ethical values which are equal for everyone, everywhere, all the time. Yeah? Good. Then the next one. At the head of pessimism, we are induced to cultivate hope. How can we do that? Do we have an idea?
Do not complain.
To not complain. Now, as we are on earth, learners of patience, as we are studying here now, are we in the right position today on earth to learn to be patient, according to this last phrase? Earth is dominated by pessimism, isn't it? Where are we? Do we feel immersed in it, or do we feel that we can breathe outside because we developed already our individuality in that level? What do we think? What did we choose to come to do on earth? To progress. Can we progress if we are in a pessimism? No. So we are here to cultivate hope. How do I, as an immortal being, learn to develop hope within the pessimism, the collective pessimism? Let's put it like that. How can I do that?
See yourself with hope. Try to see what the good that's happening at the same time that the bad things are happening.
But I cannot see any good. Switch on news, everything is just... How do you do that? Do not understand. How can I see goodness?
Sometimes the only thing that works is to change the perspective, is to think that this is the planet that is going through this process, but there is something else. For me, sometimes it's the only thing that works.
Okay, Susanna?
You have to change the environment. You have to change from the environment that takes you to have this kind of thoughts and pessimism and negativism, I think.
But sometimes, let's say, we are in a family which is very pessimistic. So I leave, I change the environment. Can I do that? I have little children. I say, my God, whew. So what do we need to do? You need to change yourself. Look at your own pessimism. Overcome it. Enlighten your own shadows. Restructure your willpower according to God's will. Discipline your mind means discipline your thoughts. If your negativity, if you are very heavy, very pessimist, educate your thinking. Because are we placed in the wrong place where we are? No. It's the best place for us to overcome us, not others. But studying Spiritism as we are doing is one of the ways. Because as more as we study, do we not enlighten ourselves? Are we not motivating ourselves? Don't we have a new understanding? Don't we feel more motivated to go off and do what we came to do? Yes. Studying, doing good helps us also. Learning through the studies to appreciate nature. People walk and look around. Did you see the flower? No, I'm just looking down. Learn to look up. There's plenty of beautiful. Nature, flowers. Even if it's winter, they still are greens. Appreciate the different seasons. The different seasons talk about the beauty of God. Is that making sense? You're so quiet. Did you froze? Before the condemnation, we are indicated to the blessings, and that close to any appearances of evil, it is imperative to think of goodness, and we are willing to serve it. So when we are in a situation, in a family setting, in a work setting, or whatever it is, of negative and pessimism, what is Emmanuel teaching us? In order to develop patience, serve. Be a servant. At home, serve others. Do good. Forgive. Be indulgent. Be benevolent. In the workplace, the same. In the Spiritist center, the same. In the community, is the same. Because the laws are equal everywhere with all of us. Is that making sense? Do we become more patient with that? Yes. Still in room certo. Cynthia, read for us, please.
Giving ourselves to similar exercises of understanding and tolerance, we will be in fruitful class for the acquisition of eternal values in the spirit.
What comes to us here?
We need to cultivate the virtues, we need to work on them, and then we will see the results. But we need to start at some point.
And is it challenging sometimes for us? Very challenging, if we are honest, because we are studying, we become more aware, we are developing our self-knowledge, who I am, in relation to the people around me, that as an immortal being, I probably ask to come back and to develop new ways of relating myself with, but the old tendencies, they are always there. And as more as we choose freely now to overcome them and to advance and to progress, we can be pretty sure that the old tendencies, they will be showed very robustly. Did that happen to you? That is the way that it happens. But once we understand how it happens, we will not blame ourselves, neither feel guilty, neither disturb ourselves about. It's just investing in the present time, as we saw previously already, disciplining ourselves, working the willpower so that we are constantly in more autonomy in our choices, and understanding that our nature needs a certain time to accommodate within the new reference. It's not because I now started to induce myself in a constructive way, discipline, that I already feel that the old me will be struggling there. And there is another element which we need to consider in our education process, which is the spiritual influences that we all have. When we are choosing to evolve in the real values, which are the virtues, we are can be pretty sure that we all have the interferences of our brothers and sisters, which are the spirits, which were our friends from a past existence where we were completely in the wrong pathway. They are not happy that we are choosing to be happy at present. Is that making sense? We learn in the Spirit's book that the unhappy spirits disturb others because they cannot see other people happy. Did you read that? So we need to learn to be happy, truly with us. Why? So that we disconnect with those interferences and connect with those who are really happy, the benefactors. Because the superior spirits are always helping to do the good for the sake of good, is that I understand. Anything to add? Where are you?
Yeah, I was thinking about the Spiritism. That's another good exercise when we become aware of. It's becoming more clear to me when that happens. And
So the discernment is increasing.
Yeah, it's
Good.
a good exercise because I still feel the same way. I still feel reactive, but I kind of like, okay, I understand better what's happening, and I try now to exercise that to separate.
Okay. And to interact in a different way. Which tools to use to help better then? Do you change the way that you think?
Yeah, I think, not even as I think before I didn't think.
Good.
So I receive the situation the way it is because it's happening. So and try to be still for a little bit to think. All the studies that things that I learned, try to talk to me in a different way.
Yes, we can use the breathing exercises, the emotions very intense. We can use some relaxation. We can use the exercise to be focused, to be conscious of what we are thinking, so that we remind our goal, which is within. We don't blame anyone, neither us, but then we step in and we change our belief system. Even if it's one goal that we may keep on repeating, so that we break free from the external interferences. Always remember that external interferences, they find resonance in our unconscious memories. Is that making sense? Then the next one says, this is how, in terms of patience, if patience leaves us, it is urgent to recognize that in the face of the most embarrassing circumstances of life, we are all at the right moment to conquer it. What is Emmanuel teaching us here?
We are always invited in any circumstance to be patient.
What are the circumstances that we currently find it most challenging? Or in other words, what are the circumstances that I feel that are more impatient? What?
Deal with people.
Deal with people. But people are God's children. So what is challenging? You love them. What is most challenging for us? Where we are more impatient?
With people that have no sympathy.
With people that don't have sympathy. Okay, it's challenging because, again, as I mentioned in the beginning, all of us still are at the beginning of training to develop the virtue patience. We all are at the beginning when we bring this out again, but we find consolation within Spiritism, because at least Spiritism explains that why do I have some people that I don't have any affinity? Because when we didn't have this explanation, it was even worse, wasn't it? And what did we do in the past? When we didn't have affinity? I'm being very generous in the past, but anyway. What did we do? Indifference, as we studied previously. We abandoned that situation. It has nothing to do. I don't want to look at his face. But is that the message for our evolution? No. So now we notice that we have people, which is normal. We don't have the same love or the same empathy developed to everyone. for all of us. We are in different degrees, and we also are bringing from previous existences beings that we still haven't learned. Well, on the contrary, Spiritism explains that. And if they are part of our psyche, indirectly or directly, that means that we choose to be with these beings in order to learn to love, learn to forgive, learn to train our minds under the universal fraternity or the Christian fraternity, which I haven't learned, because I can feel, if I'm honest with my heart, I can feel. So as we say, my worst enemy is myself in relation to what I haven't developed. And I don't need to blame myself. That is all through self-knowledge addressed in a loving way. And of course, we won't have the same spirit of loving ourselves and others towards every spirit, every human being. We have different ways. But as long as we start to change that internal resistance, and sometimes it may be difficult to go face to face, but we can start as spirits to think as immortal beings, and knowing that the other is also a mortal being and is a child of God. Is that making sense? We can pray for them. We can go, when we go to sleep, to ask the benefactors to help us, to unite us, so that we can have under their supervision the meetings that will facilitate the changing process gradually. Then in the book Amanhece, by the Spirit Emmanuel. Dani, carry on for us, please.
Patience is a passport for all those who aspire to advance on the roads of progress.
What do we learn here now? It's true. In which way?
For me, it's true because I became more patient and I'm progressing. I can see the progress in my life. When I accept this point, okay, I have to shut my mouth and like the law of silence, zip, and just like accept everything, and that's it. In the way accept, but
accept what you cannot change, isn't it?
Yes,
is that what you mean? Yeah.
Just try to go with the wave,
with the flow.
Yeah.
As a learner.
Yes, and I'm progressing also.
That's very good. It's very good when we learn to hand over what is not down to us to do.
And you feel more.
You feel with more patience.
Happy.
Precisely. It becomes lighter the way that we conduct ourselves. Instead of carrying the heavy burden, which is down to the resistances, we are lighter within. It becomes easier to adjust. And then carry on. It's still by Emmanuel. Let us avoid destructive shocks and donate the best of us to the action programs we propose to carry out, exercise an understanding and tolerance, aware there to restrain and calamities on the spiritual ground. Patience is the ideal method. Oh, sorry. Forgot. I was reading and I'm looking. Call my attention when that happens. So now, what is that telling about us?
I like the expression destructive shocks.
How's that?
An idea of the teacher when we overreact or when we react instead of acting. What is what really happens?
Anything to say?
Because I like that it says to the action problems we propose to carry out, because we come with this problem. And I think if you don't have patience, we just run away from opportunities.
Precisely. Because the opportunities, Dani, for all of us, we as, let's say, children, spiritual as we still are, we just like what is funny, what is good, what is like a child to play around. But whatever is not down that line, we may run away and we miss the opportunities. Because the greatest opportunities to train patience will be in situations which are pleasant, The majority of them are situations, opportunities, which we are not comfortable internally. Is that making sense? Anything more? No? Okay, move on. If you have engaged in a cause of good, keep yourself in constant service and using patience and love, you will surely win. Win what? Win who?
We will achieve your goal, which is the development of the virtues.
I will win over myself. Correct? All tendencies of the new. If I insist in this process, I will overcome. I will have the victory over myself. Is that making sense? And I will come closer to reach the goal that I choose to conquer here on earth. Correct? Surely win. We will not achieve peace without excuse and mistakes of others that in other circumstances could be ours. Is Emmanuel in the book Ave Christum, in the introduction. So what do we learn here? Can I really develop patience, which is a virtue, if I don't learn to forgive others? And what do I need to learn first that I'm able to forgive others?
Learn that I am imperfect and I need
To forgive myself, that I'm imperfect as well. Because quite often our perfectionism, our rigidity that we bring from old habits may interfere in that. Oops, sorry. Don't expect the other to ask for your cooperation. Collaborate voluntarily in the certainty that you are performing valuable sowing of work and love in building a better future. How is that coming to us in terms of self-knowledge and patience?
I have a question about that, Denise, because how should we, because especially in our culture in Brazil, where people expected to be carried by others, they are very dependent. So how should we approach the situation in this way? For example, should we wait for someone to ask for help, or should we just help?
Collaborate voluntarily. Well, then I need to learn what can I cooperate in every situation. And cooperate voluntarily means developing the free will spontaneously, and as more as we evolve towards God's laws, more we amplify our discernment, more better we know how to cooperate and interact, because you also need to respect other people, isn't it? We may also want to cooperate and others don't. Well, we need to respect that. Sometimes cooperating in certain situations under our culture, perhaps is learning to be silent. Perhaps cooperating voluntarily within our culture may be allowing others to be as they are and we choose to move on. Is that making sense? So each situation needs to be analyzed. But cooperation means according to God's laws. And as more as we inspire ourselves towards God's law and learn, it becomes easier to understand. We can have very good intention to help someone, and perhaps that person doesn't want us to help them. So we need to, in that moment, silent and respect, and that is cooperating towards the good of all, isn't it? But it's almost like really be willing to open our hearts, be at home, be whatever we are, to do good. Well, I did the washing already all the week. Well, stop complaining, do it again, because we are doing it for ourselves. What is the problem? I just gave a simple example. Is that making sense? This simple example of our earthly, did it clarify? Our earthly experiences. In the Gospel according to Spiritism, Cynthia, read for us, please.
Pain is a blessing sent by God to all his elected. So when you suffer, do not allow yourself to become afflicted. Rather, bless the Omnipotent who, through the pain of this world, has chosen you to receive glory in heaven.
What do you have to say to us?
Pain is a mechanism of education.
Is it related to self-knowledge and patience?
Because each imperfection we have brings a suffering with it. So as long and for us to become pure spirits will take a long time. We'll have to have a lot of patience to deal with our pain and with our sufferings until we conquer this level of evolution.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Are we already, we as humanity, to a point that we developed patient enough when we go through pain that we don't complain? No. The majority still is complaining, yeah? So that shows that we haven't learned much about how to be patient. Because as modest we learn to be patient, even through all trials of illnesses, of pains, we still go through them and need them as an evolution method. But we will stop complaining when we learn to respect the natural laws and understand the universal laws, that we are not victims of others. Nothing happens by chance to us. Dani, read that one, please.
Be patient, because this is also a charity. Everyone should practice the law of charity as taught by Christ, who is God's anchor. Charity given to the poor in the form of
Alms.
is the easiest of all. However, there is another kind of charity which is much more laborious and so consequently offers higher merit. That is to forgive all those placed in your pathway by God to act as instruments for your suffering and to test your patience.
How is that coming to us? Do we already have enlightened ourselves to the point that we understand that those who come or are part in our existences who we say they disturb us and they put my nails on whatever. Now what do I learn by the gospel? What is it telling me about? Even easy. Now, as you are a student of Spiritism, you are learning that those who are doing that, they are God's children, who God places in front of you for you to learn to develop patience. Is that making sense? You look at me if I'm talking Japanese. So again, we can see how much is Spiritism inspiring us through the knowledge that we learn. We just need to be attentive on a daily basis, because otherwise the opportunities come and we just reinforce the old way of being. Patient. Next one, Susanna, read that for us, please.
We know full well that life is difficult, being composed of so many apparently useless, insignificant, and harmless things, which act as repeated pinpricks and end up hurting us. However, if on the other hand, we observe with care the duties imposed upon us, and on the other, recognize the consolations and compensations received, then we must admit that the blessings are far more numerous than the pains. When our eyes are raised up to heaven, our burdens appears to be less heavy than when our brow is bowed down to the earth.
What do we learn here in terms of patience?
I think when he says that the blessings are far more numerous than the pains, I think the blessings are like really more than the pains. There's a little pain, and we have a lot of blessings to help us to go through it, if we be able to acknowledge that.
If you are
Our
receptive.
benefactors are quite much with us, to be honest.
Quite, they are very generous with us. They are very generous with us. Yes, yes. And then we carry on to the other one, still from the Gospel. According to Spiritism, by their friendly spirit, in 1862 says to all of us, courage, my friends, Christ is your model. He suffered far more than any of you and had nothing to offer penitence for, whereas we must atone for our past and thereby fortify ourselves for the future. So be patient, be Christians. These words summarizes everything. So what comes to us now?
Accept and be patient.
Would I be right in saying when we choose to learn to be Christian, we choose to train patience? And what do we understand means be Christian?
Develop the moral values that was taught by Christ.
Develop the moral values, universal values, which are God's values in the universe. Understanding that we are all brothers and sisters. What else? Understanding about that we are all immortal. But all is so bad to me, this existence. I choose to do good. Because I already came from a past experience. And I will inherit myself in the future, isn't it? What else?
Learn to have faith.
Learning to have faith. Faith we develop through reason and in developing our heart. Learning to love, cooperate for the good of everyone as much as we can as a free choice. Developing discipline, developing the willpower according to the will of God. What is the will of God for us?
To evolve, to learn to love.
To evolve, to learn to forgive each other, learn to love each other, learn to cooperate with each other, learn from each other. Can we not learn from each other? Yes, a lot. So, do we feel a bit more motivated today as we're coming to the end about self-knowledge and patience? Yes? Do we feel? Of course we do. Off we go for the studies here, and we choose gradually. Remember that we always still have shadows, all have limitations, we all are impatient sometimes, but as we persist and insist, we will gradually become more tolerant towards us and others. And in that way, we are coming to the end of our meeting today. And I would ask, Susanna, would you like to do the closing prayer for us?
Thank you, God. Thank you for everything you gave to us till now and everything we will receive. Thank you for this moment, this study. Thank you for your blessings, your patience to carrying all of us in your arms. So
we're coming to the end today. Much peace to all, and hopefully we are together in the coming week.